Hi, my name is Alfonzo Tucker, and you're watching Visions for a Child's Heart.
Rachel's weeping for her children. Rachel's weeping. Somehow someone's got to save them. Save the children. And if you say that love the answer, why don't we begin? Or will we just end?
Hi, this is Miss Evelyn. Welcome to another wonderful segment of Visions for a Child's Heart. Today we have a guest that I am excited to be talking to. We were just meeting for the very first time, but have connected probably about 6 or 7 months ago. So today is your lucky day. Welcome to Mr. Alfonzo Tucker.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Mwah! Glad
Appreciate
you're here.
That was that hug we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I
Good.
love it. And you're representing Northern California.
Mhm.
Most of our guests are coming from different places, and you're at
Yeah.
home, and actually more at home than I realized.
Yeah, just right down the street, really.
Okay, yeah, here in Solano
Yeah,
County.
it didn't take me long at all to get here.
All right, good, good. So, and you came, you brought some of your works with you. So you not only
Definitely.
brought your story, you brought your story in print.
Definitely.
So the way that we connected was actually, as what my previous guest was on Facebook. I found out I don't even know how we connected. I think it was through another young man, Jaquin.
No,
Yes?
no. It may have been through the woman I work with as my agent, Jennifer Jones.
Jennifer, okay.
Yeah.
But I think the person that brought you to my attention was one of the young men that I work with, and he said
Okay.
you might want to check him out. Maybe he had
Oh,
read
okay.
your book or something.
Okay.
Hi, Jaquin. That's my little PR person.
Is that right?
Not little.
Well, thanks, brother. I
Okay.
appreciate the connect.
All the way
Truly.
down in Atlanta at Clark University. You go, boy. So yeah, he is a very, just I love it because I tell him he's very resourceful, and he's looking, and when he thinks something is going to be of interest, he's looking out for our community.
Okay.
And when I say our community, I'm talking about, I call them my
Definitely.
babies, our foster youth.
Understood.
So tell us about your story. How old were you when you became a part of the foster care system?
I was 13 years old.
So you entered care at the age of 13.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
so
13 years old when I
Where
entered
were
foster
you?
care.
Who were you with prior to that?
Well, I grew up with my biological father.
Okay. Here in
I'm-
California?
No, we came from Detroit, Michigan. He brought me here, I would say Sacramento,
Okay.
when I was about 6 months old. We
Wow.
lived in Sacramento until I think I was about 4, and then we moved to Fresno, California, where I grew up.
Okay.
My biological father was not the typical person that one would think of in today's society as being, a positive influence upon another. A lot of times we want to make sure that we raise, healthy, strong individuals. And my biological father, his mindset was that of a pimp. And I'll be real with you.
Okay.
He was my biological mother's pimp. Unfortunately, when he took me away from her, he was in a situation where he had to leave town.
For
And
his well-being.
definitely for his
Okay.
well-being, because he had a contract on his life.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I've never met my biological mother.
Hmm.
To this day, I'm a grown man, and I've still have never met her. I know her name. I have a couple pictures, but that's about it.
Wow.
And living with my biological father, I was taken away from him by the state of California. So I became a ward of the state, and I lived in my first foster care home with a woman that I adore and love to this day. Her name is Linda Reeves. She is my first true mother figure. She taught me how to use a knife and fork, corrected my English, and I thought she was bougie. I thought this black woman is not understanding who I'm from, who I am, where I'm from, and she's a blessing, truly a blessing.
Wow. And she was your foster care.
She was my first foster mother. I had a great foster care experience that first year living with Linda Reeves.
Okay.
But then
Before you go
it
ahead,
got
let's
really
back
bad.
up a little bit, because I can imagine it's difficult for any child to go into care.
Mhm.
Coming from the background that you've already begun to experience, and being a 13-year-old male.
Right.
Okay, so somebody's going to take you out of what you knew, even though
Right.
it might have not been what we would determine as the healthiest. It was what was familiar to you.
Definitely.
Right. What was the situation that brought CPS?
Well, to be completely honest with you, Thomas, he, along with selling drugs, of course, he was addicted to crack cocaine. at that time. He fought his heroin addiction by the use of crack cocaine. In fact, he credited his
ability to function.
his ability to free himself from heroin use by use of crack cocaine. You know, he taught me a lot of things that, you know, I would care not to know, to be honest with you. He taught me how to rob, steal, and unfortunately, you know, engage in activities that were of an extremely violent nature. So living with him was truly an experience that, you know, I can't run away from because it is there.
Right.
But oddly enough, I don't know why, other than, you know, belief in a higher power, my conscience, that I could not engage in those behaviors on a regular basis, hence growing up to live like him. You know, truthfully, I've done the exact opposite, which is not the norm.
Yeah,
at all.
because now you're in law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which isn't completely odd, because a lot of persons that come from my background, they have an interest in criminal justice, but I have even greater goals today. Even greater goals today. I'm definitely putting myself in a position to accomplish those goals.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
hence helping others.
Wonderful. You know, you're saying something that I find difficult to address with foster parents, because a lot of times when children are being punished for behaviors that they have been taught, the foster parents or the adoptive parents take it out on the child.
Okay.
And, you know, really beat them. And when they are upset about the behavior, they usually include the child. And I try to tell people to make the distinction between the behavior and the child, because some of that isn't what you have chosen to do. It's what you've learned, and it's a behavior to be unlearned.
Right.
What would you say to a foster parent who has a child who, like in your situation, and maybe what was, I know I'm asking a lot of questions in one, but what was your experience when those behaviors surfaced when you were in placement, or did they surface?
Oh, they definitely surfaced. The first part of your question was, what would I say to a potential or a foster parent?
And you can tell our audience through the camera.
Of course. There's going to be situations that one has to deal with in life that are just completely heinous. And, you know, as individuals, we all have our quirks, so to speak, our goods and bads about ourselves. In my opinion, I believe that the nature of man is good. I truly believe that. So with that being said, a lot of times you're going to have to look into a person's soul. You're going to have to look into their thoughts. You're going to have to look into the underlying situation. Why are they behaving this way? Hence you saying them having grown up and being taught certain things. You know, when I was taught how to deal with a situation, I was taught ball up your fists and send it through that situation. I was taught to deal with problems and issues with force, so to speak, and never through the mindset of being positive or talking your way through it. So to answer your question, my advice would be to sit the person down, him or her, however old or however young, and have conversation. In my opinion, conversation can solve all of these issues, hence my desire to become a therapist. Conversation, in my opinion, will get to the underlying root of the issue, and then if you're unable to deal with that problem, then of course you can seek help. You can seek a professional. You can seek someone that might have a little bit more knowledge than you, so as to help that child, that person, older or younger. So don't be afraid to communicate. And unfortunately, within our community, as far as persons of color, there's a stigma. You know, you don't want to go to therapy because then something's wrong with you. It's not the case at all. You know, I was very fortunate. A woman by the name of Nancy Cisneros, who is a mother figure to me today, beautiful woman. She was actually the judge that handled my case and actually placed me in my last foster home. I still have a relationship with her today. In fact, she just had a birthday, you know, a couple weeks ago. And every chance I get, I try to send that woman some hugs and kisses and smiles, and as much as I possibly can, to give her, you know, that joy that's within me to give her. I'm truly blessed to have her. But she made it a point for me to seek counseling, and that definitely opened my eyes. Yeah. So don't be afraid to go seek some help.
You can probably see the tears in my eyes, just because what you just said to me is what for a Child's Heart is all about,
Mm-hmm.
because my thing is look into the heart. You know,
Mhm.
I don't believe there such thing as bad kids.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there are kids that work your nerves.
Of course.
I believe there's kids who haven't been trained
Right,
or have
right.
been trained in the wrong way, but I believe every child is reachable because every child has a heart.
Mhm.
So coming from you and the words that you use, I couldn't have stated it any better. And I hope that our adult listening audience will take that into mind. A lot of people, I said, well, let's sit down and talk to people. Ain't nothing to talk about. It's just wrong. That's stupid. They should know better. It's like shoulds.
Yeah.
There are so many shoulds in this world when you say, you were not brought up. I mean, we're talking about a whole different culture, you know, not necessarily in our society, but a different culture of living. You grew up by a different set of rules about different things of what's significant, what's valuable, what's appropriate, and it's about unlearning. And so when people look at you and frown upon you, that would be like you're coming from another country, speaking another language, and you're getting beaten for speaking another language, which we know has happened with some different, you know, ethnic cultures.
Right, right.
So how did people approach you? What worked and what didn't work? Because that must be a real
Yeah, it's
tough
a good
mindset.
question. That's a very good question. You know, what worked and what didn't work? How did people approach me? I can recall being approached by, you know, teachers and coaches and persons that worked in the ILP organization, which is the Independent Living Skills. It's like a subdivision of foster care. Oddly enough, those persons, you know, approached me in a fashion, well, Alfonzo, how are we going to get you over this hump? How are we going to help you? And truthfully, I was kind of taken aback because why would these people that don't know me want to help me? You know, and a lot of times coming from, you know, where I'm from, when I grew up, anybody that approached you in that fashion
Wanted something.
exactly. So, you know, I was cautious. Now, they approached me in that fashion. I became defensive and thus, you know, reluctant to receive that help. So it was a journey. Truthfully, it was a journey because I didn't really know who to trust. I didn't know how to trust, and I didn't know if it was the best thing for me to do other than, you know, I can take care of myself. You know, I've been taught, you know, how to survive. You know, I know how to make money. You know, so
I don't
that's
need you.
basically, yeah, basically, I can do it all on my own, which, you know, is not the case. We're human beings. We're made to be social. You know, we're made to communicate. We have emotions, you know, whether we like it or not. You know, being subjective, as I am a subjective person, or objective when you try to, you know, free yourself from all, you know, ties emotionally, it's not healthy.
It doesn't work.
It isn't. It isn't. And I learned the hard way, but I learned. And fortunately enough, I'm in a position where I can get back. I can
love it.
definitely help others.
So that rational part of your thinking in that mouth, the external you said, you know, I can take care of myself, I don't need you, or as kids say now, I'm good.
Yeah.
What was the inside, Alfonso said?
Oh,
What
please.
was the heart saying?
I was the inside. You know, the surface, I'm a rock. I'm tough. You know, but the inside, I was probably, gosh, how can I say this without, you know, becoming overwhelmed in myself? I was saddened to the core. You know, I had not known what it was like to receive love from my biological mother. So the relationships that I had developed with women until, you know, my teenage years were not entirely healthy. My biological father, because he was, you know, a man that sold women, he manipulated women and got them to sell themselves so as to support his drug habit. I had that as a reference. And within me, I didn't enjoy it because I didn't know if it was right or wrong. I just knew what I saw, and I knew that the people that I communicated with, they were always sad, or they were strung out, or they were in pain. And that manifests itself within me from some really dark places and areas.
So what was your heart saying? What was your heart saying inside?
Well, my heart was saying, you know, get out of this situation. But of course, I'm trying to remain loyal to, you know, my upbringing, to my biological father. So it was very, very difficult. You know, I was probably, you know, suicidal for many years. You know, I didn't have a great understanding of self. You know, how you kind of don't really know your identity or who you want to be, what you want to do. You just know that in certain situations, this is how you react because there's some unwritten rules to the game, so to speak. With all that being said, you know, it took a long time for me to actually develop that strong sense of self, even though I knew I wanted to go in this direction, which I felt was right, away from, you know, the degradation of life or whatever. It was very, very difficult, and I probably hid within myself for many years, for many years.
And the point that I'm trying to get to is because you're describing everything that we see. When we see, especially our young black men,
Right.
and you know, we just, people tend to look at and say, you know, well, he's this and he's that and he's hard and no need in wasting my time. But inside, there is still that little boy inside.
Oh, definitely.
And what is that little boy saying?
Help.
Okay.
Help.
Love
you know?
me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely that. Definitely that. Help me in the sense of providing for me, and then not even financially, because, you know, I didn't grow up wealthy, if you will. You know, when Thomas was hustling. And
I want to go back because this is really important to me when you were saying, what is the little boy inside saying? And you were saying he's saying help.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I added.
And you referenced love.
Right,
Love me.
I added love, and because I have such a concern that especially with young men, period, but especially with our African American and our Hispanic young men, you know, young men of color, have this image that people don't want to try to get below the surface, and there's still a need there, and people are hesitant to try to give love or show any love. And I want to know, what is it that reached you?
I was 17 and a half, and I went to live with Mike and Dana Darling, who are the two people that graced the cover.
Okay.
My last foster care placement.
Okay.
And they were able to get through to me. You know, I owe them my life, essentially,
And how did
because,
they do that?
you know, they loved me.
Regardless of your attitude?
Oh, it was amazing. Unconditional love, and I've never experienced that. You know, even with, I would say, my biological father. You know, of course, I've never met my mother, so I didn't have that foundation of love. Now, mind you, my first foster care placement, Linda Reeves, as I told you, she definitely loved me and definitely taught me a lot, but I was only with her for a year.
Right.
You know, and that was during a time when the transition was so hazy. I mean, my emotions were up and down. So, you know, the second foster care placement was just horrible completely. I mean, this woman, I'd come home and it was, you went straight to your room. You only came out of your room to eat, to use the restroom. You ate in your room, and you had to stay in your room. And mind you, at the time, I really didn't have an issue with it because wasn't nobody kicking in my door.
Because you didn't want to have to deal with nobody.
Man, wasn't nobody kicking in my door. I wasn't having to play lookout. I wasn't having to take a bat to somebody to help get my biological father out of some mess. I wouldn't have to help drag a body up out the house because somebody got shot, and if the police came, then, you know, a lot of questions were going to have to be answered.
So in some ways, it was
cool.
a sanctuary for you.
Man, it was okay. You know, the electricity was on and there was running water, so it was like, all right. But even then, that was only for, I think it was a year and a half. And then I went to emergency foster care. And then, you know, my father now, Mike Darling, he came and picked me up from juvenile hall. And this was after Thomas had supposedly, my biological father, by the way, I graduated from a drug rehab program, and oddly enough, social services, Mr. Espinoza, who was my social worker, Hispanic gentleman, and I cared for him very much because he had my best interests at heart. He was happy for me and told me that I needed to, you know, take this as a blessing, and maybe Thomas had gotten himself together, and that wasn't the case at all. I mean, the honeymoon period was over so quickly that there was a situation where a man was coming to the house to collect payment. As he stated over the phone, my biological grandmother was living with us, and it wasn't like the days of old where it was just a fight. I'd hide in the bushes, he'd be across the street, and we'd rat pack somebody. I mean, it was a situation where if my grandmother was involved, she could possibly pass. She was an elderly woman. And that situation sent me over the edge. I had gotten a job at Pistol Pete's Pizza, and my first check was somewhere around $57, and that money I used to buy a pistol. And when this man supposedly was coming over to collect payment, I psyched myself up, and I told myself I would lay him down if he came through the front door. And when I went in my bedroom to get the gun, the argument between my biological father and I escalated to the point where, you know, I finally stood up to him. And even though he was just basically, from a physical standpoint, done, because the drugs had drained him mentally and physically. I mean, he was so bone thin and skinny. He was your typical basehead. Let's just be, you know, blunt. I threatened him, threatened myself, and contemplated taking my own life. And I remember sitting there with this gun, and I was thinking, man, I gotta shoot myself, but where am I gonna shoot myself to where, you know, I can be done, like a snap of a finger, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But I was afraid, simply because I've seen people get shot with a low caliber weapon and keep running. So I was fearful. And oddly enough, in that days, the police came, and you know, I did whatever I had to do to get rid of that gun. I hid the gun, and it was a situation. I went to juvenile hall, and Mike Darling picked me up from juvenile hall. And funny enough, I mean, it was Christmas Eve when he, of all times, when he picked me up. And I remember that first night in that house, it was just completely odd, because I'm witnessing, you know, people live a certain way, and it just seems so
surreal,
odd. Ozzy and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver type corny mess, you know. This is what I'm thinking. This isn't real. Do you guys really live this way? So I thought I was on vacation, you know. I thought I was on vacation. But after time, I grew to understand that their love was genuine. It was a blessing, and I needed to do whatever I could to reciprocate and grow myself. You know, he told me some things that I will never forget throughout my life. He told me, Alfonzo, all I need you to do is your part, and I will do mine. I want you to go to school, and I want you to work out. As far as I thought I was an athlete at the time, and I want you to go to college. And I wasn't even thinking about graduating from high school. I was thinking about anything like that. And lo and behold, you know, it was definitely a bumpy road, but gosh, you know, I went to college, man. I had to go to a junior college because my grades were so poor coming out of high school, and I didn't know how to study, but man, I got an AA degree. I was like, wow. And then I went to Fresno State, and I was an athlete there, and I got a BA, you know? Yes. And then I was like, wow, you know, I actually graduated, and, you know, I just recently earned my master's degree. I know it sounds kind of cool, right? Sounds kind of cool. And, you know, I've done some research, and I found the doctoral program that I'm going to enter. And right now, I'm preparing my admission package. So hopefully things work out. Maybe you know, 4 or 5 years from now, I'll be able to say I have my PhD. And you're going to be working with For a Child's Heart. Oh, definitely. Believe me, that's real talk. I plan on you know, being a clinical psychologist, and you know, helping persons, you know, like myself and others, disadvantaged youth and so forth and so on, you know, anyone that I possibly can. Yes. You know, I have some goals, and when I accomplish them, I will have inspired every person on this planet. Wow. That's real. Well, I'm inspired. We've come to the end of this segment. And my message to our listening audience, especially our adults, but I want you to hear it, young people too. The title of this program is Visions for a Child's Heart. And it's not just because we're on television. It's because my goal is that everyone has a vision for their lives. Alfonzo had someone who stepped in his life and placed a vision that gave you another picture of who you could become, and that you had that potential. Right.
And one of the things that I say when I give messages to people, I always use the HEART acronym, but the H stands for hold a vision. Hold a vision of our young people, because wherever they are at the moment is not where they're going to always be. Please don't say negative things to our young people about you're just going to end up to be like this or be like your dad or something else, because this is a beautiful example. And this is not the only one. We have many young people who have overcome so much to be who they are. So we have to wrap this up right now, but I just want you to continue to hold a vision for a child's heart. Young people, we love you. It's possible. Hang in there. Everybody take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Rachel's weeping for her children.